Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Ulysses Town Board. It is 7 p.m. on Tuesday, March 14th, and we are meeting remotely under our video conferencing policy per the governor's executive order for an emergency declaration. And so may we have town board members, in order to participate by vote, will need to be on video screen. But before we get started, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes, and my video was acting weird, so I shut it down for the moment. Mr. Goldman.
Present.
Ms. Weatherby.
Present.
Ms. Bouchard.
Present.
Mr. Boggs. Ms. Olson.
I'm here.
All right.
Excellent. We have an agenda, and it was a revised version was recirculated earlier this afternoon. I would like to make two additions. Rich spoke to me earlier today about doing an appointment to the planning board. So I'd like to add that in under new business. That would be officially, it would be D, because we are missing B right now. And then I would like to include a resolution or a discussion of a Senate bill related to EMS services that Assemblywoman Anna Kellis has put forth. I had a conversation earlier today with, or yesterday, I should say, with the supervisor from Enfield, who's also on Anna's staff, and they're hoping that municipalities can pass resolutions in support of the Senate bill, or the Senate and House bill, or Assembly bill, so that we can get some assistance on EMS. So I'd like to add that as well. So that would be item E under new business, if the board is willing. Are there any other alterations to the agenda as presented or amended? Then hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Okay, that brings us to privilege of the floor. Is there anyone in the public who wishes to address the town board?
I would like to, if I could.
Sure.
Bob Howarth, member of the Board of Zoning Appeals. I just want to say I'm concerned about how our minutes are being recorded and held in the last couple of meetings. We had a meeting in January. The minutes from that were sent to us in the February meeting. They were not approved in the February meeting because the members of the board that were present there said they had some serious disagreements. At the February meeting, we were told that we would eventually have a new scribe, but we didn't. And the town planner was telling us he was going to provide the recording of the minutes. And I believe others objected at the time, suggesting that he had an essential conflict of interest in that most of the time we're meeting as a Board of Zoning Appeals is to hear appeals from the planner. And so for the planner to also be the official recorder is just an essential conflict of interest. Subsequently, we have not gotten the minutes to this date from that meeting, which is now more than a month out. By law, under open meetings law, all minutes must be publicly produced within 2 weeks. So that's a violation of law. That's a problem. And we're going to our meeting tomorrow night, and I think we're going to have a really interesting situation because we don't have minutes. I already objected to the fact that conflict of interest there. I think the board has to take this up as an issue. I think it's going to put the town in legal jeopardy if if you don't pay a little bit more attention to it. So I'm happy to answer questions on that. And we'll bring it up with the BZA tomorrow night as an official issue, but we're likely to, we haven't seen the minutes yet. And again, state law requires that BZA minutes be put online. It's a matter of public open meetings law within 2 weeks. They're not there. So you and we have a problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from the public who wishes to address us? Okay, well, we have a second privilege of the floor later in the meeting.
Well, Caitlin, I think we should put this on some kind of,
Rich,
Okay.
I am dealing with our attorney on it right now, so we can certainly talk about in the future, but I would like to schedule an advice of counsel if that's in fact the case.
okay.
So I'm well aware of it. So thank you. Okay. Moving on then. We will go to, sorry, I'm just hopping between different screens simultaneously. Next up is liaison and chair reports. May we start with, and I should have put this first and I apologize for not doing it. I meant to put the county first. So Legislator Corman, if you're available, we'd love an update.
Thank you, Supervisor Olson. I'm doing pretty good tonight, so nice and cozy, as I'm glad you guys are having your meeting remotely. I'm glad you're taking advantage of the governor's provision to do that. It's pretty nasty out there. So just a couple things. We had a proclamation at the county for March for Women's History Month, and we proclaimed it Carol Kamen Month. She has been our county historian for 23 years, and more years than that, she's worked as a historian in the county, and I know has helped historians throughout the county really get together and network and produce some really great literature, including many books. And so I wanted to thank her and thank all the local historians that help preserve our history. One of the biggest things that we're looking at for the state budget, as you alluded to, a lot of things going on at the state level right now, and we've passed some different proclamations for various things, energy stuff going on, and also funding. One of the biggest things for the county is the governor's budget has a provision that would wipe out a bunch of funding we get for our Medicaid reimbursement, and to the tune of we're already in our budget for 2023. It's the calendar year, and starting in April, we would lose points or $750,000. And then starting next year, we would lose $1.5 million in reimbursement. And that's equivocates my back of the napkin rough estimates, 20 to 25 staff people at the county that I'm not saying we'd get rid of them, but I'm just saying that's about equivalent. So that's pretty scary. So we're urging folks, if they want to call the governor's office, email, to please let the governor know that how you feel about that. And let's see what else. We are working on our strategic operations plan for the county, and that's a little bit different, as you might know, than a comprehensive plan. It's more of, because we have almost 700 employees and about 30 different departments. This will help us with like the nuts and bolts of like what each one does and how we meet those goals that we outline in our comprehensive plan. And the last big thing I just wanted to mention was we had Dr. Martin Stallone from the CEO at Cayuga Health come to one of our meetings, a Health and Human Services meeting, if anybody wants to take a look at that. And he gave about a 20-minute overview of tracking what happened in COVID, and just in the specific aspect that he touched on that really struck me was about testing. And in Tompkins County, with 100,000 residents, they were able to provide 2 million COVID tests so far. So that's really huge number. And the estimates are that based on other counties around New York State and across the nation, by doing that and a lot of other things that people did individually as families, workplaces, governments, other organizations, all the efforts that people put in. So wasn't just the testing, of course, but they estimate that that altogether we saved 181 lives in Tompkins County by doing that. So that's really something to be proud of. And they're going to look at trying to, and as the county is too, to look at lessons learned because another pandemic could come, but it's also just better ways to provide services, better ways to mobilize. We can use some of this to help with our plans for any kind of emergency. And those are the main things that I have. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions for Legislator Corman? Well, thank you very much. And you are obviously welcome to join us for as much of the meeting as you have time for. I hope that you're getting a bit of a reprieve as well today. Excellent. Do we have any other representatives from committees who would like to speak? And then I would like to ask town board members to give updates related to their committee activities as well.
I could report on the CSAC if you want.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Somehow my hand raising isn't working. But I don't know.
We
I don't
take
know
places.
why. Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah, and I'm also, my video isn't always working. So anyway, we had a meeting. Our meeting is the first Wednesday of every month, and but we had this one shifted to the second because of some people being out of town. Anyway, the sort of one of the big things that we're working on is this Teberg Earth Care Day. I don't know if you've seen any of the save the date announcements. They've been sent around by Kate Darfler, who's part of the main organizer, but we have a member of our committee, Marissa, who's working really hard on it, and a lot of our group is going to be participating. So it's just going to be a really big community event that's going to be really great. We're going to have electric vehicles. We're going to have a dish truck. We're going to have community trash pickup. We've got a bunch of high school groups engaged. We're going to talk about No Mow May, a No Mow May kind of effort that we're putting out. Arbor Day. There's going to be a sort of a electric, an induction stove, induction sort of heating top that there's going to bring and talk about that. There's going to be composting info. We're going to have the powerhouse again, like we did for our community campaign for energy upgrades. We may have a renewed effort on the community solar campaign that we still have on the books, but it's sort of waned when there was no availability for people to enroll, but that has changed. And the bee friends pollinator support, we're going to have a booth on that, and we're still working. We'll have some other things too. Anybody who's interested in anything sort of sustainability and environment related. So that's a big effort that a lot of us have going on. On April 18th, there's going to be another one of those forums, that community forums at the Friendship Hall. That one's going to be on a whole bunch of different community organizations and what they're doing was the idea behind it. And so I was asked to just speak on in terms of CSAC, what we do. Mary's going to be there about the bee committee. There's going to be maybe the tree committees from both the village and the town. So that's another environmental thing we're engaged in. And then working back actively on documenting the high impact actions for towards the clean energy communities qualifying for the grants, 10,000, and then a little bit later, 20,000. Our coordinator was on leave for a little while, but she's back now. So I'll need to loop in with Carissa again and get some more final current information on some of our energy use in the town hall, but, yeah. And then I think Linda probably will report on the Source Water Protection Plan Committee, but if not, I can do that too.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for all your efforts. Appreciate it. Linda.
Whoop.
There
There-
you are.
Sorry. You caught me just as I had to let the dog out. So we met Monday for the Source Water Protection Committee. And our main project at the moment is to focus on the survey. The plans are to do a survey of the town and the water issues that occur for people that are using wells and document that. And we also had good news. We actually had a new representative for, hold on a second, sorry. There. I had to, so we now have a representative from the New York water resource community. We were short the representative who retired in January, so that person just began and participated in our meeting on Monday, which was great. So we got to meet her, and we'll take advantage of all the resources we can from New York State. And I guess that's about it for now. Thanks.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions for either committee right now?
I just have a quick question, I guess confirmation for Roxanne. The Earth Day celebration that you're talking about, is that actually on Earth Day? And at the farmer's market?
I think, oh, I'm sorry,
April-
yeah, it's April 22nd, and I think
Okay.
that actually is Earth Day this year.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's gonna be, I think it starts at like 9. There's a particular window that like the trash cleanup's gonna be happening. Kate's gonna be sending out more things, and at our April meeting, we'll be really sort of nailing things down on that. Yeah, I think it's gonna go to 2 or 3. I think the food and I think there's gonna be some music too. That's all gonna be like in the afternoon, like maybe 12:31, starting around then. So,
I
and
think
the-
it's like 11 to 1 will be the
Oh,
music and the food.
the music and stuff. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I couldn't remember quite when, but the trash pickup will be earlier, and the other things, the powerhouse is going to be there, and because that takes some settling in to get it in the spot, and the electric vehicles for people to sit in and talk about, including an electric truck. Mary's son has.
My son's Rivian.
Yeah, so that's going to be really interesting for everybody, I think, and there's going to be a lot of other things. So if anybody hears of anything else, or you have another thought of something that you think would be good, for us to include, definitely let me know, and we'll put it into the mix of things. We're still thinking about other things. We've got a good opportunity, and hopefully have a pretty captive audience. And once we get the final invite out, we'll send it. So it would be great if everybody could send it out to your people, And yeah, if you want to help that day or anything, just let me know, let Kate Sharfler know.
Okay. Yeah, no, I know I'm looking forward to it, and I know the baseball team will be there. We're
Right.
recruiting the
Yeah.
teams to do some cleanup in the area. So
Yeah, great.
looking forward to it.
Awesome.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. And then I know that agriculture had a committee meeting this week. There was a youth commission. We can do a youth commission update. Liz and Mary, did you want to talk about ag at all?
Well, I was only there for a half an hour because I had to go to the village board meeting, but Liz was there for the whole time. I don't know how long did you go?
We stayed around and just chit chatted till about 7:45. A
Hmm.
little longer than we had expected, but we wanted to make sure everybody could get home before the storm hit. We didn't have quite the representation we did the first time. We had about 6 people there, but 5 of those 6 were new. So we did get new people, which was nice. And there was a variety still of those 6 people. 2 people had been involved in the original development of the agricultural plan and on some of the original committees. And then the others were all kind of new and bringing some new fresh light to things too. So I think I think it was another good introduction meeting. We still don't have official signups for folks to be on an agricultural committee or be part of the comp plan steering committee to the seats that we want to make sure there's an agricultural voice for the development of the comp plan. But we're gonna set another meeting, and Mary, I'll talk to you about this offline because I know I haven't caught up with you yet. We want to set an official meeting in April and focus on having them quarterly, and I'm going to have agendas from now on, and we're going to really just make this an official meeting and we can talk about the organization of the committee and so forth. And really, I'm going to start pushing people. So I'm going to be making some phone calls to people who were there the first time, who said they would be interested in serving. The couple people that we spoke to last night, there are some interests in serving on the committee as well. So I'm excited about what we can bring back to the committee and see what we can do.
Great. Thank you. Mary, did you have any updates from the village board meeting? I heard it was not a horribly long meeting, which is always usually good.
No, I mean, I was there to talk about the Bee City USA initiative, and also to talk to them about the April 18th event, as well as Earth Day. And then in May, we're planning to have a presence at the plant sale that the Garden Club has at the Presbyterian Church. And we, there was a little bit of discussion about whether you have to mow your lawn, because one of the things that we're trying to promote is No Mow May, where for the month of May, you don't mow your lawn, within reason. If it gets, a foot and a half high, you want to mow your lawn, or or get a bush hog or something,
A goat would be.
So anyway, there wasn't a whole lot. They talked about water, encouraging people to conserve on water. They talked about water rates, and I am not sure what else. Anyway, so but I did want to mention, because you wanted board reports, right?
That was delightful. Yes.
Okay. The Rec Partnership met actually 2 weeks ago, and mostly they talked about usage of the Rec Partnership programs. And I got a spreadsheet from the Ithaca Youth Bureau rep to the Rec Partnership. And the usage statistics are pretty interesting. So I'll send them out to the board. You can see how many people use Rec Partnership programs, and there's a lot of programs, including skating and swimming and baseball, arts and crafts, things like that. Summer day camp is very popular. So I'll send that out to the board so you can see how our money is being used. The Bee Committee, we're still getting applications. I think we have like 10 altogether so far. And we're meeting this Saturday to talk a little bit about the events that we have planned. We have a couple of people in the Bee Committee who are really into pollinator gardens. So on the event on the 18th, we're going to have Marissa Nolan, as Roxanne mentioned, who's also on CSAC. She's going to do a presentation on how to create a pollinator garden in your lawn. And then a couple of our Bee Committee members are going to have pictures of their lawns, which they have converted to pollinator gardens. And then I'm not sure what we're going to do in May, but we'll plan something interesting and exciting. So that's it for me.
That's wonderful. I wondered do they have any word about bringing back indoor swimming by any chance? Have you heard that at rec at the
I don't think so.
okay. That was such a great program. That is my pet peeve that has not returned in post-COVID times. It was phenomenally good.
Was that at the high school?
It was, and then
Ithaca?
yeah, and then it was at the high school, and then they were planning in spring of 2020 to move to Ithaca College because they were redoing the high school swimming pool. And then I don't know what's happened to it since, but it's a real loss, I think, because there's frankly just a shortage of quality swim lessons available.
Oh, yeah.
And I know every parent probably has worries. Mine is children not knowing how to swim and falling in water. So that's like, we have so much water around us. I would
Yeah.
really like to see them stand up a legitimate program that happens in the winter as well, because they used to, I mean, I know they do the summer program, but it's hard to get your kids in there sometimes. So anyway.
I think it's a matter of finding a location to do
Okay.
lessons and actually finding instructors. We did actually talk about this at the meeting.
you? Okay,
Yeah,
good.
yeah. So there's a real lifeguard shortage, and you got to have lifeguards if you're doing lessons. And they just they've encouraging they pay for the training, lifeguard training that Rec Partnership does, or the Ithaca Youth Bureau, because they are so desperate for lifeguards, and the training is pretty expensive. It's like $300 or something. And so, but even with the offer of paying for the training, it's hard to find people to become lifeguards.
Well, if we don't teach more kids to swim, there's going to be even fewer lifeguards in the future. So that's kind of
Yeah, it's like if you don't have a lot of lifeguards, you don't have instructors, and the population of lifeguards just shrinks and shrinks and shrinks.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being an advocate. I appreciate it, Mary. And Youth Commission, I think probably Liz and I can team up on that. Youth Commission met last Tuesday, and at the last board meeting, I'd let you know that RYS Rural Youth Services have been having a challenging time getting applicants to the program position that Ethan had. At the point we met a month ago, they had one applicant. After our first meeting in February, they got a second applicant. But the voting members of the Youth Commission decided at the meeting last week that we wanted to take this opportunity, because we did have a stopgap measure in place in the town regarding youth employment for the summer, that we wanted to take this opportunity, and it's been the first time in over 7 years, to look at the contract that we have with RYS. There was generally the sentiment that is we'd like to recommend to the town to keep going with RYS, but we were not overall satisfied with the contract in its existing form. There's been a desire to kind of change things around. It used to be, for instance, that the youth coordinator or coordinators, because there was a time back in the day when we had more than one and they were both part-time, that they actually spent a lot of time physically in town hall, or obviously providing services to the Ulysses population, but that they physically had a presence in town hall. That's something that we've gotten away from, and that's something that the Youth Commission thinks is important to bring back in. That's the interim executive director for RYS has indicated that's something they're amenable to. We're through, I think it's through today or tomorrow, commission members are putting their feedback into ways they'd like to see the contract tweaked to make sure that we're really getting the programming that best serves the needs of our population, because this is really our opportunity to change that contract, because once you have somebody in place, it makes it a lot more complicated to try and change employment requirements or service requirements. Liz, what am I forgetting? What am I missing in that?
About the contract? No, I think you got it covered. It's just, we have an opportunity right now to just relook at it. And so we're taking advantage of that opportunity. Just reevaluating it, not the need for it, more just the context of it. Mary, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering where are you going to put somebody in town hall?
There actually was a desk set aside for Ethan. He just didn't use it. We
Where,
do,
upstairs?
yeah, upstairs. And so, yeah, so we actually had dedicated space for him. It just was never used. I mean, when I say never used, it was very lightly used. He certainly didn't spend the bulk of his time. He would come in and out of town hall periodically to meet with Blixie and things like that, but it was never an actively used space. So we've had dedicated space. We just haven't had anybody using it really.
Yeah.
So, any other questions?
Just another update on the Youth Commission more generally, but camp registration opens on Saturday. Spring rec for both youth and adults opens tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. And there's going to be, I think the adult programs for the spring it's going to be adult kid pickleball.
Mm-hmm.
So something new, try.
Yep. Also still
then-
volleyball, basketball,
Yes. Yeah.
soccer. Those have been very highly attended, which is great. We're getting good feedback. I think the school is generally happy, which makes me happy. We have a host of summer camp and baseball's coming back. Again, of course, softball's coming back this year, which is something that we had some constituents who very much wanted to see. They were able to stand up a program this year. And the other rec update is that there was initiative put in place to do an adult art program. There weren't enough registrants to start it in March. So they pushed it off to recruit some more in April. So that had been something that there was a desire to do. I remember when we started in 2020 we were talking about an interview process of wanting to stand up something other than just sports. And so this is another step in that direction. So I know there are a lot of families eagerly awaiting summer camp opening. Are there any other committee updates or announcements about what's going on in our various assignments? Great. Okay, then I think we can move on in the agenda. I'll just give you a quick Camp Barton / Three Falls LDC update. Last night, Covert approved. Is everybody sitting down? Is Covert approved forming the LDC and allocating money? So we have a third-party municipality who is joining us. So that was it sounds like it was a close vote, but they did get those three votes necessary to go the threshold. So we are going to be filing paperwork this week or next week. Depends on just how long it takes this whole weather thing, I think probably impacted something to some delays. But in the next 2 weeks or so, we should have paperwork filed with the state.
Okay, are we going to adjust the amount we're putting in?
I was going to ask the same thing.
So I talked to Roran about that. We don't realistically, it does not impact the filing of the paperwork because New York State doesn't care about how much we put in. But what we can do is we can adjust how much we actually, because you'll have to authorize a payment that hasn't happened yet. So we can go ahead and authorize 10,000 and then hold off on the balance. Frankly, I think we're going to probably need more than 30,000. So I would prefer not to go back and repeal at this juncture, but I also have no problem not paying more money than we need to, or putting in sub-establishment that we can have the money paid back to us differently. But I think at this juncture, we're probably only all going to put in 10,000. And if we need to authorize the additional 10, then because we were going back and forth on how much we needed to get going, if we could get going on 30,000, that would be perfectly fine with me. So,
Okay.
So stay tuned for more on that. But that's kind of where we are right now. We had a meeting with New York State. Now I can't remember what day it was. It was a couple of days at the end of February. I want to say around the 28th. Maybe it was March 2nd. Might have been March 2nd. That March 2nd is feeling familiar. Which New York State, we met with the representatives from New York State and the municipalities. And it sounds like everything. Right now, the license, we have a boilerplate licensing agreement that's with it's with our attorney right now. He's going to be talking to the village's attorney to kind of make sure that the licensing agreement from a legal perspective is going to basically let us know what we can tweak or what we can't. And that's with New York State. So we're going to be doing that. And then the municipalities are also going to be talking to the Boy Scouts or the Scouts about they have a desired usage. So Rich, I will, a meeting date got settled with them. So I'll shoot you the date on that if you're able to join us. So 30th of March. But that's kind of where we are. So we're going to be moving in 2 parallel tracks. The Boy Scouts or the Scouts would like to have some idea of their accessibility to the property as a condition for them signing the paperwork from New York State. So that's kind of where we are in the negotiation process. But the New York State's perfectly happy with the direction we're going in, which is great.
So the sale isn't it's not done yet?
No, there's not, the final signing for that's probably going to be 6+ months out. And maybe less than that depending, but New York State wants to feel comfortable with the licensing agreement with the municipalities before they sign. And the Boy Scouts want to feel comfortable with whatever agreement they have with the LDC before they'll sign with New York State. So everybody wants to feel comfortable before anybody signs anything. And then when that signature goes into place, there's still going to be a multi-month closing process. The big item that is an unknown is clearing title, because the attorneys will not be doing that necessarily until there's signed paperwork. And so as anybody who's been through a real estate transaction knows, clearing title can sometimes be an efficient process and sometimes is not as efficient. So that's kind of an unknown in the situation. But we're hoping it's efficient.
Who's going to be at the meeting on the 30th?
The mayor's Roden's gonna be there. I would imagine somebody from Covert's gonna be there. I'm gonna be there, a couple representatives from Boy Scouts, but any LDC member who wants to be there can be there. So if you'd like to, or board representative. So if you'd like to be there, I don't know if Ben Carter's going to be there. I know Deb was appointed to the LDC board, but they have not filled the second slot yet for Covert. It might be Bill Shaw, who was an outspoken advocate of the town joining last night, apparently at the Covert meeting. So if you'd like to be there,
I definitely want to be there. Yeah.
Sounds good. Sounds good. We can work out a digital version if you would prefer to meet that way. But we'll be in person at town hall that day.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's at 9 a.m., 9:15.
Yeah, I can be there. Yeah.
Okay. I'll send you the info.
Question, Caitlin?
Yes, Michael.
Are the Boy Scouts trying to get language in the contract?
They will not have anything in the state doesn't put anything in the purchase. So it's a clean purchase. But they do want, they've been very upfront about this from the very beginning, that they'd like to have some accessibility to the property. There are other examples of entities having accessibility to public facilities. The Scouts in other parks apparently have already developed access. So my guess is they're looking for some long-term commitment that they would have some access, recognizing the fact that because it's a public facility, it's not like we're going to shut down the whole park for any individual group for any period of time of any significance. So from what the Boy Scouts have shared, and they're going to be bringing what they're looking for to that meeting. So I don't have those details yet. What I do know and what they've shared, they've shared at in the public meeting that we had last February, is that their main property is down in Winslow. And they have, 2,200 acres, and that's where they run their full day camps or full week camps. But they've used Barton in the past, and they're going to be running camps this summer at Barton for like weekend Eagle Scout projects, like 2-night things where, I mean, it's a fairly small group of youth that they don't, from what I've been shared with, they've been shared with me, they're not anticipating having exclusive access to the park at any point. But that they want to have some continued access, but the majority of their programming happens down in Winslow. So
Yeah,
but I don't know exactly what they're looking for at this juncture.
right. I don't, I'm not opposed, excuse me, their access. I would just want to make sure there's something more stringent in there that they don't get into the same trouble that they got into that forced them to sell the property. Like Will and his program has to go through. Is what I
Okay,
would
good
be
to know.
interested in, but that's in the future.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay. Excellent. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Then we can move on to grant updates. We have, we've had some wonderful / frustrating grant news. I'm going to start with the frustrating one. The first one up is the DEC grant. So we found out that we got the wonderful DEC grant for comprehensive planning in November, late November, early December. And then DEC, I would imagine, is short-staffed and or busy with other things. So we still don't have a contract, even though Michelle has been a very diligent telephone partner. I'm sure they're seeing her number flash up and sending to voicemail at this point, just because she is a consistent caller to their hotline.
Hey, Caitlin, sorry. We just got it in our inbox today, late this afternoon.
But you didn't get the contract. You got the
Oh,
paperwork
right,
in
right,
advance
yeah.
of the contract. So today came, thank you for setting that up. And is it correct that when they don't answer the phone, they say that climate change can't come to the phone? Is
Yeah,
that-
it's like a computer that says climate change is not available to come to the phone.
which these are the things you learn that you have no valid use for. But apparently DEC does have a sense of humor. So today they sent us the paperwork that is the preparatory paperwork to fill out to go into contract. But the long and the short of it is, Michelle talked to a representative from DEC that is, I don't know if she's a program manager. She's not, we don't know yet if she's our program manager, but it's a representative from DEC that deals with grants, and basically said, since you're using volunteer time and staff time as your match, as your sizable match to the grant, you should not really start accruing sizable hours until the grant contract is in place. So we're hoping now that because we got the paperwork today, we can flip it around this week. I'm honestly hoping I'm not saying that too rapidly, Michelle. I scanned through it. It seemed manageable, but the devil's always in those details, but we'll turn it around as quickly as we can so that we can get the contract executed. So my fingers crossed, my hope is to be able to bring that to you to the town board meeting on the 28th. But how fast they process our paperwork is going to be a question on that. And I believe we'll also have at least one, possibly two more appointments to bring to you for the DEC, or not for the DEC, for the comp plan at the 3/28 meeting also. So hopefully we can get the green light from them to really dive in, which would be great. Any questions about that from the board?
So is that the reason why there's not been really very much movement on the comprehensive plan? Is it because of this grant?
Well, yeah, I mean, because we're using that as our match, and until we know the full parameters of what we're doing, we have to, we had been advised that until you have the contract, that's really going to put the parameters on what you're doing. And we should have a good idea from the application we submitted. But because we're using volunteer time and staff time as the match, we wanted to be fully comfortable. And frankly, we filled a lot of the positions on the committee, but we're still outstanding on agriculture. So we're really hoping that you can tell somebody, I'm joking when I say this, but you could pretend it's the bee committee and then put them on the comp plan committee. But I think we've probably filled potentially our business liaison position, as well as potentially one of the last open one. And at that point, we're really looking at agriculture. So then we'll have a fleshed out committee we can just move forward with. So I think timing wise, it's lining up well, but we really do need somebody who really likes bees to want to be on the comp plan too. So send anybody our way that you think might fall in that agricultural.
I'll bring it up on Saturday.
That would be wonderful. That would be wonderful. Anything else on the comp plan update? Okay, then I'm going to pass it off and with some congratulations to Michelle for another successful grant that she's written. This was done in conjunction with MRB, but she really took the leadership role on it. It was the DEC non-agricultural non-point source planning grant, which is I finally find that a really dumb name that doesn't mean a whole lot to me. But Michelle, why don't you tell us about how this grant is going to be very beneficial to the town?
Sure. So this was a grant that was also submitted in the last round of CFA. MRB helped us. They have a grant department. And so we collaborated with them on the scope of the work and the work sites. So it's basically a planning grant for 7 different culverts within the town of Ulysses. And it's $30,000 towards the planning grant. And the next steps so as Caitlin was just mentioning, it's the same state department, the DEC. And we found out about the comp plan grant that Caitlin was just talking about back in, I think, December or January. And we just got contact recently with contract information. So I'm imagining that it's going to be a couple months before we get a human to talk to about where we're at with the contract for this grant. So until then, we'll be working with MRB on the scope of the work, really defining what's going to be done with this planning grant. And what I'm wanting to do is align as much as possible. One of the culverts in this planning grant is that Curry Road structure that we've been talking about for years. And so this will get us a pretty decent way into providing some engineering reports that will help with future applications. We'll have some design done that will help increase the scoring for future applications for that structure in particular, for capital and for all the structures being studied, all 7 of them. So those 7 were identified by Scott. And so more to come on all of that. It's really great that we got it.
Yeah, I think the board will remember that this DEC grant basically sets us up to go after it's like a twofer, it's not a twofer, it's a 2-step process, 2-step grant process. So this one should be setting us up to be able to go after the DEC money to actually do the work, like Michelle said. But if you don't have these construction documents, you're basically never going to get that funding. So we're really excited about that. Any questions about that right now? Other than waiting, we're going to be twiddling our thumbs at town hall on this one for a while too. So hopefully they come through sooner rather than later. And then the next up is the IT CTC grant for the Black Diamond Trail. So we got the official go ahead from IT CTC that we were at the last town board meeting. I was able to tell you that it seemed very likely. Now I can tell you that we did receive it. And it's $18,000 to do the scoping document for different design options for consideration for possible routes of the Black Diamond Trail to the village, and then asking the consultant actually to help even suggest internally within the village some possible routes, not because we are going to tell the village what to do, because that would be a project on their end, but we were trying to set them up to be successful, to be able to take this document and if they're interested in doing an extension within the village, then they would have at least something to turn to as kind of a jumping off point. Obviously, village officials and things would be spoken to in the process of developing this. But we were just trying to set them up for success in the future, so they didn't have to start from scratch either, because we're not starting from scratch. And then the idea is that looking basically for an exit route from the village to connect to the Camp Barton property as a state park, because New York State has been very actively investing in the extension of the Black Diamond Trail south of us to both Frontenac, to both Robert Treatment and Buttermilk Falls. They've been making some major land acquisitions down there in conjunction with the town of Ithaca. So there's certainly momentum at the state level, and so we'd like to capitalize on that. Michelle Drafton, we were able to get out an RFP to different engineering firms, and she actually got a really good response to confirmation of firms receiving it. Michelle, was it 10 that were confirmed? Somewhere in that ballpark?
Not quite 10, but there was more response than when we sent out RF or requests for interest of expressions for the Bridge New York application process. So that was interesting to me, because we use the same list, which is the list of engineers who are already qualified according to the state of New York to build structures for specifically bridges and culverts. They're on a quick list of people who New York State has already vetted to say, yep, they can build structures for highways.
So we're hoping to have a relatively quick turnaround there. We're providing them with a lot of documents already to work from. So we're hopeful that we might actually be able to go into a CFA round this summer with documents. So that's what we're looking at right now, because while the state has money, and there's a parks commissioner who likes buying land and developing rails to trails, we're trying to capitalize on that. Were there any questions about that process?
So the RFPs are back, or is there still just the interest?
They're due at the end of the month.
Okay.
So they went out last week. Is that right, Michelle?
That's on March 3rd.
Okay.
And due the 31st, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions about that? I'm sure there'll be feedback requested and opportunities to participate. So we'll keep you in the loop as we start to go through that process. Okay. Then with that, I would turn it over to a discussion on land acquisition. Originally, TCR was going to be with us in person. And we jointly decided that it would be probably better to do that at the March 28th meeting from a time-wise standpoint, and also we're not being in person. So TCR.
Before we go there, can we go back to the Boy Scouts for a second?
Oh, sure.
So are they going to use this meeting as basically contingent? If they don't like what they hear or don't get what they want, that they wouldn't do the sale of the property?
I mean, a sale, like any sale, a sale's not done till everybody signs. So,
Right.
I mean, I would say that I haven't felt that they're operating. I've had no impression that they're operating in bad faith. So I'm going to anticipate that they're operating in good faith, and they would just like some clarity about access, because they've been very vocal. They've been very upfront about wanting access in some fashion, but not ownership or full access the way they currently have. So what they currently have isn't working for them, is what they've expressed, which is why in part they're interested in selling, even though I believe their financial obligations to the settlement have already been paid. So, so that's the information I have.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I'm not gonna consider this a done deal till the wet
Right.
signatures are on the page. So I'm gonna remain cautiously optimistic.
Okay.
So, good question. Okay, well, this brings us to discussion of land acquisition. Back in January, Rich wanted to talk about the potential of buying land. We talked about it, I believe, at the second meeting in January, second regular meeting in January. And at that point, the town board shared expressed their willingness to let me work with TCR directly. Liz joined me for a number of conversations with TCR about what they need, about how different groups in Ulysses feel about currently about access to sports fields and to recreation fields in general. And Liz, would you mind just sharing what your perspective is from what you've heard that people are generally looking for? I put you on the spot.
No, you're fine. In general, the school has been very willing to share their fields with all of the rec programs, whether they're run through the town or they're private entities such as Taganic Soccer, Trumansburg Travel Baseball, and the Trumansburg Little Blue Raiders football teams. But a good thing is we're getting enough kids and starting to expand where we're running issues, and there's a lot of schedule conflicts between ensuring the varsity and the high school sports teams have access to fields, but also our youth have access to the fields too. So that there are times when every single field between the middle school and the high school on the school campus are filled with kids ranging from 5 to 18 years old. While that's great to see the community out and being active, we need some space to grow. And TCR has released a survey. I know I believe soccer program got it. But I know the baseball and the football teams also received it. I don't know what the results are. Maybe that's something that TCR can provide some initial responses and results to us on the 28th would be. But just seeking what really are we needing? Do we need practice fields? Do we need game fields? What is it that is really the program's needs? And like I said, I'm interested to see what some of those initial results are. I know there's been talk about trying to provide access to everybody, and hopefully there's some ways within, maybe it's a couple fields. Barton's definitely going to help, or Three Falls, Barton. There are
No
some
idea
fields
what the
there
name
that could be used
We don't
too.
have the name yet. Yeah.
But there really is, I think it's a good thing that we need some more rec fields. I think Caitlin said this before, but we're probably one of the only, if the only town in the area that doesn't have rec fields that are accessible. And it's not just for our rec programs. If a family is having a reunion and they want to play a kickball game, maybe there's something going on at the school, they can find a baseball field or something, field that the town owns, if we're able to work something out.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's TCR is not just about youth recreation too. They're also about adult recreation. And there's been a desire, I know, from the indoor rec programs that we're facilitating at the school. There has been discussion among those groups about being able to transition outside in the summer. And sometimes that's not possible at the school because, for instance, the varsity soccer field is not accessible to the public. People aren't allowed to use it. The JV soccer field is in the process of being regrown, which is great. The town helped carry topsoil to facilitate that process last fall. But that's been a field that's been out of commission now for many years. And so there's, and Liz and I can both attest, I've had soccer players playing in the middle of a field that had baseball teams playing on either side. And we had kids in the our kids were in the outfield ducking the balls that the baseball team was hitting because they can hit really well. So, it's a wonderful problem to have, quite honestly, when we look at other municipalities who are losing population so significantly that their sports programs are suffering. We're experiencing the opposite in Ulysses. So, and to your point, Liz, TCR will be presenting their initial findings. We will on the 328 meeting. But between the two of us and communicating with TCR, I think we could comfortably say that all of the sports programs we've talked to would certainly appreciate having more field accessibility. It doesn't mean that they want to turn away from the school completely, but they also see having alternative places for activities to happen is something that would be very beneficial to the longevity of their programs. Because not having space really limits the kind of programming you can run. And so while we're very appreciative to the school, I don't think anybody would feel like having these other additional places to be is going to be a bad thing. It's going to in fact be complementary resources. So that being said, there's a resolution in the board packet that would allow me to begin negotiations on the parcel of land that's currently listed for sale and has been listed for sale for a while on Route 96 in Perry City. And this, it does not buy the land. It only lets me negotiate and bring a deal back to the town board for consideration. I wanted to, Carissa, could you let me do a screen share? I wanted to share an ARPA document with the town board, if you didn't mind. Awesome, thank you. So currently that property listed for sale is listed at $129,500. I've spoken to our attorney quite a bit about the process. It's very simple for a town board to buy land if we have no intention, no firm plans to construct anything, like construct a building on it. And while there may be a future building on the site, you really have to have like plans right now that you're basically going to turn around and like you have design guides or you have design plans. There would be no intention of building a building on this property for, I can't imagine any time in the immediate foreseeable future. So at this juncture, it's a fairly simple and straightforward process. This ARPA funds this is a document is a reflection of the ARPA funds that we have already allocated and what remains outstanding. So we already used the just under $8,000 for the Van Dorn tank maintenance. We have budgeted in the 2023 budget our IT upgrade at $75,000. We're hoping it comes under less than that, but we don't yet know what we don't know. So we have 3,300 allocated for water studies. We have 27,548 allocated for the radio meter replacement. And that's a project that installation should be happening starting later this month, early next month. We already have the radio heads purchased and they are at the town barn. So those installations are going to be happening. We are going to want to be ADA compliant with our back door. So we've allocated $11,000 this year to do that. And then we have talked quite a bit about the need for coming up with a plan to handle our back parking lot and particularly stormwater issues related to being attached to a pretty steep slope and wanting to mitigate water coming off that parking lot and adversely impacting the surrounding area. Right now, this is just a placeholder of $40,000. This would be for the major design work that we would need. What I'm hoping the board will consider, and this is not just a meeting to talk about ARPA. We're not, we haven't firmly allocated that money. That's just a placeholder of something that we have talked about. The idea would be, though, and we talked about in budget season, is getting the design work together so that we could go out and then look for grant money to actually pay for construction and the capital investment. So if we allocate even at earmarked at $40,000, that leaves us with the remaining ARPA balance of $157,149, which would be of which we could choose to allocate payment of a land purchase from that money. If the board is interested in doing that. So I wanted to open this up for discussion and see how people were feeling, if their thoughts had changed on the matter since January, February. or if this still seems like a good idea. What I can tell you, and maybe Liz can speak up too, is that this piece of land in particular would be good because of its access to public water and its accessibility to Route 96, and the ability for us to get very likely county support to get a bus stop on Route 96 at this location. It has some benefit. It has some real benefits. The water investment is huge, to be able to maintain the fields without having to without having to put in a well or not water at all, which is not great either, for field maintenance. And so the fact that it does have those attributes are really beneficial. Maybe Liz, you could talk about the research you did on field sizes in other municipalities. This property itself is 13.25 acres. So what did you share with them what you shared?
My Google Earth measurements. Yeah, so when I first started looking at this parcel, I remembered back TCR was saying they needed 30 acres. So looking at 13 acres, it got me concerned that we're not going to be able to do a lot with the 13 acres. But I started looking at what Lansing has, their baseball fields and soccer fields that they have over on their rec fields. I looked at Cass Park, and not in an engineering scientific way at all, just measuring via Google Earth the size of the areas. They're about 10 to 15 acres. So the 13 acres actually falls within what other towns have for sites. This particular site is flat, which is an advantage. So grading is not, significant grading is not going to be required. Developing of fields and a variety of fields too. I want to support not just one sport, but as many sports as we could fit, and maybe even some recreational activities. There's no development plans that I'm aware of for the site really yet. So they're open-ended, but there are some advantages to the site. The water is huge. Access to bus enables kids and families that may not have cars to hopefully have some easier access. Accessibility is always an issue when you have working parents and kids need to get to practices. Coaches are willing to help, but if there's public transportation that can help too, that's always an advantage. So I do think there is some potential for this property. I'll say it. Some good potential. It also would be kind of nice with people coming in from Ithaca. One of the first couple things that they see in the town would be agricultural and rec coming up 96. So might not be bad first impressions for our town. And there's not significant residences either. So yes, there's definitely residences, and we'll need to work if this property ever fulfilled, but we can. Yes, Michael.
On the other side of that, do the 12 tribes on the other half of that?
I do believe they own the 10 acres that are closer to Perry City. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's currently in agricultural use.
So the question is, we go ahead and we buy it. Then who maintains it? Who does the mowing? Who does the field work? Who does the putting that? How does that all work? Do we contract with somebody to do that? Does the rec programs contract with somebody to do that? Do we lease the land back to somebody? How do we envision this all working?
I think we can look at, I think leasing is not a bad idea while development plans are in place. To be perfectly honest, this is $1 million project to redevelop. So it's not like we would buy it and then all of a sudden we're all, playing soccer games on it in anytime soon, or baseball or football or anything like that. This will be a situation where we would develop frankly in a similar trajectory, I would say, honestly, in regards to Barton, but in regards to Central Park in New York City. There's a public-private partnership. New York City Central Park is owned by the city of New York, and it is paid for by the Central Park Conservancy, which really stepped in the 80s because the park wasn't being taken care of, and it's a nonprofit that stepped in to be able to coordinate donations and things like that. That's why I see the benefit with TCR. It's an established not-for-profit. It's had a very difficult time moving forward because it's kind of like that lifeguard thing, right? You need land to get people to take you seriously, but you can't get land until somebody gives you money, and nobody takes you seriously without the money, but you have to be taken seriously to get money. So it's just this, it's kind of a challenging situation. So what I would anticipate, long-term and say 5 years down the road, because I really do think it's going to be many years of going through design work that's going to have to be fundraised to do the design work, to then going out to grant applications, both to foundations that TCR could apply for, and to CFA funding that we can apply to, and other granting sources. I think it's a situation where I would like to see outside money pay for, when I say outside money, I mean not the tax levy, paying for the redevelopment of the property and getting it up and functional. And then I could see long-term maintenance being something. Mowing is not, quite honestly, that difficult for the town to absorb in 5 years. We can scale up to doing that. Scott took over and the highway department took over a lot of the mowing that we used to contract out. And so doing the mowing and that kind of maintenance to me is probably a lot lower on the scale. And there's also ways to work with private entities, such as the sports clubs, to there's a contribution that's expected in order to have access to the fields for certain times of the year. If you want, you want the soccer fields for this many days, for this many events, then we're asking for a reasonable contribution to help offset the cost of maintaining it. I mean, to me, that seems perfectly reasonable, and it's a model that other communities use.
Okay.
So it would be a slow process. I mean, honestly, I think probably leasing out the fields potentially, or just doing basic mowing, just to keep or we get a goat, the town goat. I'm still thinking that's not the worst idea. I've had many worse ideas. In the short term, I think that's probably more realistic where we would go from a maintenance standpoint. Other questions, other thoughts? Is someone willing to move the resolution? Do we feel comfortable doing that?
You want to read
Okay.
it?
And the resolution would authorize me to go into negotiations on the property. But it would not authorize me to buy said property. So I would be bringing that back to the town board. So Liz has moved it. Is there a second?
Second.
Wonderful. Any further discussion or comment?
No.
Okay, then I will call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Carissa, I'll send you the version that Nate gave us. It's the same version that's in the board packet, but it's actually a full document that you can fill out. We need a certified copy to give me authority. So I'll forward you that. Thank you. Excellent. That brings us to new business. The Route 96 concept study for water system interconnection number 2 from the 2015 engineering report. So this, I have been multiple owners, 4 owners at this point on Route 96 have between the village line and Cold Springs, which is Cold Springs is the start of Water District 3's line, have reached out to me requesting water along Route 96. And right now, and so we started doing some digging. Right now, all of the properties who have reached out are commercial or semi-commercial. So up in the commercial complex outside the village, there's been requests for water. And then the new owner of the Halsey House has reached out, and then Smart Start is having real challenges with water quality at their facility. and down closer to the hamlet. So wanting to be responsive, but also recognizing that this is, this is a pretty big, lift. So we started digging into the materials that had already been prepared. And in fact, in 2015, an engineering report was put together for Route 96. We talked to, it was prepared by MRB. Michelle and I met with MRB last week to talk about this particular interconnection that had been identified. Right now, I technically would have these, because of our procurement policies, I could go ahead and spend the money without talking to the town board. I don't like operating that way because this would be the first step in a potential very sizable project that impacts the town. And so I wanted to bring it to you for approval and discussion. What I would like to do is basically dust off that 2005 or 2015 report to look at an interconnection between the village and Cold Springs. However, I'm also cognizant that we would most likely not construct an entire extension between those two destinations. What would be much more likely, because in an effort to avoid agricultural fields, and frankly, property owners who may not be interested in public water, would be, I think it's more likely that it's going to ultimately be a potential extension along 96 to Teganic Park Road, where the Halsey House is located, and potentially an extension north out of Water District 3 to the Smart Start properties. That was something that was already being discussed a year and a half ago. There are some property owners along that route who have already expressed interest. What this allocation of funding would allow us to do would be to get updated numbers on the cost of doing that kind of work. It would also, there's broken out, it'd be an evaluation of connecting from the village line from Smithwoods to Cold Springs Road. And it would also look at whether or not doing these two shorter pieces would actually make more sense, just based on property owner interest. And also the middle section that we could cut out if that didn't happen is quite honestly the most expensive section to do, because it would be going over two bridges. And again, property owners who may not be interested and going into agricultural land. And we have, made an effort to try and avoid that. But I'm trying to walk that line, right, of trying to meet the public's needs, but also being mindful of limitations that we have in other ways. So and then finally, this would pay for, would include a public information session. MRB thinks that they could turn this around for us and we could schedule a public information session probably for early May. And I'd really like to be able to get those property owners together. And it would be the property owners along the entire route. I'd like to hear honestly from those property owners whether or not they would be interested in water, or if they need water. They might say yes, they might say no, I'm not sure what they're going to say, but I would like to invite them to participate in the process, and then get a sense of whether or not, based on the cost estimates, if the property owners are truly interested in forming a water district to begin the effort to actually pay for it themselves. So that's what we're looking at. Just questions on that. I'm sure there are questions.
Would the information session include information on, what a property owner might have to spend in order to fund the infrastructure and, run a line to their house? Yes.
So MRB would be able to, we'll have updated numbers of what the cost to the property owner will be. MRB is not going to be able to tell every property owner exactly how much it's going to cost them personally to run to their house, because it's obviously dependent on how far the house is, elevation change, things like that. But they're going to be able to at least point the homeowner in the right direction on making some of those determinations themselves. One thing that is good-ish that's come out of this is that when Nancy was working with MRB, 18 plus months ago, and trying to help the Smart Start property, see about the accessibility of water. The price tag of that water was pretty high, in part because any extension to Water District 3 would include a debt service payment to Water District 3. And that was coming in at about $600 a property. Because of the timing of this, the debt service is going to expire on Water District 3. There's still going to be ongoing costs as we transition towards building, some capital reserves to be able to help offset investment in the future. But the major cost will be, the major debt service will be gone. So by the time these properties come on, they would still contribute to Water District 3, but they wouldn't have such a high bill. But yes, it's going to come down to, they're going to be able to tell you, tell you how much each individual property is going to have to pay towards the debt service for this extension. Because under New York State water law, the creation of an extension is treated the same way the creation of a whole new water district is treated from some legal practicalities. So they would be taking on the debt. They would be taking on debt. And so MRB will be able to tell a property owner, yes, it's going to cost you X number of dollars in this way. And then, estimated usage of this, that's how much your water bill is going to be also. I can also tell you, I should have told you this. I confirmed with the village that if we tapped into their line, they would be happy to sell us water. So we do have a water purveyor willing to sell us water from the north, and I know that Ithaca was fine with it when we've broached them about an extension before. So because this isn't new to them, that we're still looking at an extension potentially on 96. But that's a good
And the
question.
village has the supply.
Oh my
I mean,
gosh,
I
they
know
have
they
more
want
water
to
than they
will-
know what to do with.
Okay.
No, they would.
Okay.
I feel like every time I go there, they want to sell me water.
Mm-hmm.
Just as a common citizen. No, they have plenty, they have a surplus of water.
Okay.
So it's a relatively small cost because a lot of the work has already been done. But just wanted to make sure that people felt comfortable with doing this, because it might result in property owners saying, heck yeah, sign me up. I want to form a water district. So, and they have the right to actually demand one, and that we would have to be responsive to that if enough of them put forward a request. But I want to be mindful of keeping the board in the loop on that.
So I appreciate you here talking about the two extensions on either end, because that was my concern on the 4 proposals. So I think that makes much more sense, because there's a lot of dead area in between. My concern on this is, and I've said this before, we keep going back to MRB because they're convenient. I think there's better people out there for this. There's firms that deal with Bolton Point, which is essentially what we are, an extension of Bolton Point, I think would be better served. And then, as you're talking about a public information session, before your time on the board, MRB did a presentation to the Route 89 Wanted to Water District, and that was probably one of the poorest presentations. And there's a lot of smart people down there in 89, and they were way unimpressed with MRB. And so I'm not trying to stop it, but I need to vote no on it. But what I would recommend you do, if you're doing a public information session, what people want to know is what it will cost to connect to them. So if we have to contact a couple of local, water system installers that says, oh, I could do these for, $1,000 or $2,000 or something, that's what those people are going to want to know. And so I'd want you to be prepared going into it to have something concrete, because MRB is going to dance around the answer. And in order for them to vote for it, they want to know, MRB can tell them what it's going to cost to get a line up the road, but then they're going to want to know, what does it take to get it from that line into my house? And that's an answer that you would want to go into that meeting with.
So Michael, let me ask you a question. You're voting no because of MRB. If it was a different engineering firm, would you vote yes?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm not opposed to it at all. I think it's a good idea, actually. But so I'm not trying to stop it because I figure it'll be.
No, I
further.
understand. So, yeah. Do we have, Caitlin, do we have to use MRB?
Well,
mean,
she
I know
doesn't have any time.
Yeah, I don't have any, I mean, part of it's time responsiveness and the other part is they did the original 2015 part. So, I mean,
Okay.
but I mean, that being said, I don't think that certainly if the water district is formed, we would take it out to bid. There's no,
Right.
no promise that we would use MRB for services. We would take it out to competitive bid. And I believe Barton and LaJudas did Jacksonville. Is that, am I remembering that correct, Michael?
No, I don't know, because
thought they did the
actually, you
design
might be right. You might be right.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's correct.
Barton and Judas did, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, we don't have, there's no promise in saying, hey, cost this out for
Right.
us.
Yeah.
That this is what it is. It mostly gives the property owners an idea of whether or not they want to move forward financially or not. So.
Okay. All right.
So I think you raised some very valid points, Michael. So I appreciate that. And I do appreciate the connection point. I'm wondering too, if Scott can be a help in that process also, because he's worked with other property owners
Yeah, that would be
on
good.
connections.
Yeah.
So I definitely will include that. I appreciate that advice.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Let's-
Okay, then is there anyone willing to make a motion on this?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
second? Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, then all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. I'm sorry, opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So stay tuned. So I'll be sure to invite you if you guys want to come to the meeting also. I think it would be useful for anybody who wants to hear what's going on and raise any questions or comments. So I'll keep you in the loop on that. Thank you. Moving on, that comes to, this is a Carissa item. is a one-day marriage officiant fee. So Carissa requested I put this on there because New York State has, in what I suspect is an ongoing bid to find more ways to raise money, has now enabled towns to collect or to issue one-day wedding officiant licenses. And they have set the rate that we may charge $25. So this will, because we didn't get this in the organizational meeting, we didn't set this rate and in the organizational meeting. So we're just, we're adding it now because it just, the domestic, New York State domestic relations law included this, this update. Chris, am I missing anything that you wanted to include?
No, I think that about covers it. I mean, people can also get their, if they're not already some sort of priest or minister, they can go online and get an officiant's license from the Universal Life Church or whatever online, but this is just
For
another.
free.
No, I think there is a fee for it.
Oh, there didn't used to be, not 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Everybody's hurting for money.
So, yeah, I'm not sure how many people will actually do this. We'll see.
I might just do it for fun.
So
Threaten to
this
marry-
is just, say my cousin's getting married and they want me to officiate the wedding. I have no other expertise. I could just apply for a one-day license and I could officiate their wedding.
Yes. Yep.
Interesting.
On the marriage
right.
license, you can check off what type of ceremony it is, whether it's civil or religious or spiritual or other. So it's up to you.
I
Interesting.
like other. I'm wondering what other covers. Fantastic. Awesome. So is there a motion to approve setting this one-day marriage officiant license fee at $25?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you, Michael. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And then moving on, appointments to the Ithaca Tompkins County Transportation Council, the ITCTC. Michelle has been serving on the planning committee. But now that, which is really something that historically I think the planner did, but nobody was doing it when she came back into Ulysses in 2019. So she ended up the liaison. And she would like to move on to the policy committee. So it would leave space for Niels to come on as liaison to the ITCTC planning committee. So we would appoint her to policy subcommittee and Niels to the planning committee or subcommittee.
So moved.
Questions about that? Okay, there's a motion.
Second.
There's a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Right.
Awesome, thank you. And that brings us to, let's see what else. I'm sorry, I am out of the habit of toggling between so many screens. So, okay, that brings us to staff reports and announcements. I think that we had reports that were circulated, and then the only other stuff I wanted to make you aware of is that the project assistant position that the town board created and we did appointments to, both Molly and Rachel started. Rachel started last week, Molly the week before that. And that's going well. It's just early days, obviously, but helpful to have.
Caitlin, are they also serving to take, be this, to take the notes at the BZA and the planning board?
Yeah, that's what Molly was brought on to do. Yeah,
So are they gonna,
her
is one
job.
of them gonna be there tomorrow?
I believe so. That's the best of my knowledge. Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Then last week we had Advanced 2000 was on site doing our assessment of our IT security systems. And we anticipate getting their report back in the next few weeks. So probably not for the next town board meeting, but most likely I would imagine around the first one in April, we're going to get their report back. So moving ahead with that, which is great. And then just wanted to keep you in the loop that having these grants is wonderful. Having these, it feels like we're doing a lot in Ulysses. So Michelle and I are, especially in advance of budget season and in conjunction with the work that's happening on the finance committee, she and I are going to be working together to map out the next couple of years on major projects based on our known identified needs, and pretty much working to try and figure out a multi-year plan for securing funding for our priority needs. So, you know, we're talking about everything from potentially a park to the parking lot to culverts to ditches and potential timelines of when we can, you know, apply for money so that as we're doing work, we're getting prepared to do the next phase of work. So as we're undertaking the comprehensive plan, we know zoning update comes after that. So when do we anticipate beginning to apply for that kind of money? So that's part of the work we're doing now or starting to do in preparation for budget season coming up, which it feels like we just got out of budget season, but yet budget season is coming soon. So that is that's where we are right now. Did anybody else have any other updates they wanted to share that they didn't cover earlier?
A question for you, Caitlin?
Yeah.
Was she the one at the planning board meeting?
Yeah, I believe so. Yep.
Okay, so I did meet her then.
Okay, wonderful.
Yep.
Yep.
Great.
If she was under the age of 30, you met her at the planning board meeting. So, yep. Good. Excellent. Anything else? I think everybody got their updates in early.
Mhm.
Sounds good. So we can keep moving. And that brings us to so many.
Did you want to
so
talk
many
about
things.
EMS?
Did I want to talk about EMS? Oh, I did want to talk. Oh, and we have, oh my gosh, thank you so much. You're right. We had 2 items added, and this is why not being in person is not my
Yeah.
favorite.
I had to go back to my
Thank you.
notes.
Yes. First off, we wanted to do, Rich wanted to make an appointment to the an alternate slot on the planning board. So I'm going to move that. I'd like to make a motion to appoint Matt Bishop to the first alternate planning board position. And if I can get a second, then Rich can talk about why we're
Second.
making that recommendation.
Second.
Great, thank you. Rich, is there anything you wanted to say about appointing Matt?
Well, we interviewed Matt for just being, as a volunteer, and very knowledge, he's very enthusiastic, knowledgeable, wants to contribute to the community. And we really do need an alternate because we've just made the quorums a couple of times in the planning board, so we really need an alternate there. And it's just for the rest of the year, so I think it's fine to appoint them.
Do you have like a webinar you can send him to? Like before he starts or right as he starts?
Yeah,
So
there's online training for planning boards. I'll have Niels make sure that it gets sent to him.
yeah, if he can get an initial, like an initiation one, because it's so he understands what it is, how important it is as a separate body.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
good idea, Michael.
Sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so any further discussion on that?
All for it.
Awesome. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then that brings us to if I'm going to do a screen share on mine, let me open it up. I sent this draft resolution to the board. And so I'll do a screenshot so the rest of the public can see it. Hold on, give me just a sec. Okay. So can everybody see it okay?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. So the bill that, it's Assembly Bill 01091. It's an act to amend the public health law in relation to establishing the Consolidated Assistance Program for Emergency Medical Services Departments, which creates a sustainable state financing mechanism for emergency medical services. This bill, it's my understanding that they're from Stephanie Redmond, who's her, in addition to being a town supervisor, is also a legislative aide, that they've received a fair amount of bipartisan support for this bill. EMS services are ridiculously priced. We need broader assistance. I think everybody pretty much understands that we can't just pay out of pocket. So this would be a resolution requesting stating that we support the adoption of that and encourage the governor to include this initiative in her budget. Basically, this would financially underpin emergency medical services across the state.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
thank you. Any further discussion?
Did they submit this to Hochul? Oh, sorry. Governor Hochul yet?
It's, to the best of my knowledge, it has not. It's one of those things that's in circulation. It has not been voted on. It's
Anna
just
Kellis has
received
been
a-
working on this for quite a while.
She has. This version was submitted originally last year. They're working. Anna is now working on another bill that I just found out about, but that has not been submitted yet. Another emergency services bill that would actually put the onus on counties to provide emergency services in the absence of municipalities in the same way that counties have to provide police protection in the absence of a municipality being able to do it. So, which is why the town doesn't have a police department, so we have the sheriff's department. I think there are a lot of counties that are very nervous about what that would mean from a cost standpoint. Right now, this model, to my understanding, would be similar to the CHIPS model for road work. That would be kind of a similar allocation model. Whether or not that can gain any traction, seeing as how the governor's currently trying to push, as Legislator Corman pointed out, is currently trying to push Medicare costs to counties. I don't know how feasible it's going to be that it's going to work into our budget, but any little bit we can do to try and move to raise attention to this issue, I think is something that's valuable. Whether or not it falls on listing years, I don't know.
Yeah, if it's not successful this year, I wonder if it's worth submitting to the AOT for their legislative agenda and see if they would take it on.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good idea. I mean, we're not alone in not being able to pay for these costs. So, I mean, they're just escalating. Nobody can shoulder 10% a year. So. And EMS is one of those things like fire protection, you have to have police protection. And you'd like somebody to pick you up when you ever have a heart attack or your neighbor's having a heart attack. So the county model to my mind is not the worst idea at all. But I've heard that one has not yet been introduced, but that's a good point, Michael, about the AOT. We could certainly do that if this doesn't get any traction. Okay, so we had a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. Went through reports. We've got 2 regular meetings coming up, and then that brings us to the January 28th meeting minutes. Yep, 28th. Did anybody have any alterations they needed to the minutes?
I just noted that it said Mr. Somebody made the motion to adjourn the meeting. And at first I thought we left out Goldman, but Rich wasn't there. So I think
Mary
I
you made the motion. You
think
made the
we did
motion.
Did
Duly
you
noted.
notice that?
We missed you, Rich. It was a very expeditious meeting. I think it was 33 minutes.
Wow.
Yep. Okay, with that alteration, does anybody have any other changes they need made? Okay, so I will move those minutes as amended. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. Budget modifications. I am going to do a quick screen share, but we have budget modifications. I think they were pretty straightforward. But if anybody had any questions, I'm gonna pull it up quickly.
The first ones of the year, right?
Yep, these are the first of the year. Yep. The very first, okay. Screen share. Okay. Yep. Okay, yep, and you can see where these were in the A fund, an overage created by a large increase in cybersecurity coverage based on market conditions. We approved that, right? We knew we were going to increase that and have to do it by budget modification. Municipal association dues, workers' comps, basically these were all things that were slightly under budgeted for. In the case of workers' comp, $3.37. So this would come out of contingency. And then in B fund, we pay disability insurance and paid family leave. It's paid in full at the beginning of the year. And we had a slight increase due to coverage additions. So $76.22 worth. Again, this comes out of the employee benefits contingency. In the B fund, in the DA fund, workers' compensation ended up coming back a little bit more expensively, very little expensively by $10.15. And we took that out of the health insurance account. And then in the DB fund, workers' comp, again, these are not sizable numbers. And in the Water District 3 fund as well, workers' comp of a whole $1.76. So any questions? I cut Michelle loose because I didn't think you'd have any questions on budget modifications, but that was pretty straightforward.
So moved.
Thank
Second.
you. Excellent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then that brings us to payment of claims. I'm going to stop screen sharing. There we go. Any questions about the claims?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions.
Okay.
The first one might have been answered by Michelle already. The RAISE grant program, is that what Michelle was working on? It was,
No,
it said raised grant program, MRB, it was voucher number 91. Just, it didn't really say what it was, but
oh, that was, we were looking at, that was, we initially, were looking at, the RAISE grant was a grant program that we thought we were gonna try and rush to apply for. It's a federal grant program. And what we discovered is in doing our investigation that there wasn't enough time to launch the whole thing. We're looking at the RAISE project. We're looking at the RAISE funds to apply for 2024, but we need to get a lot more ducks in a row. We weren't prepared to do that, but we discovered that in doing the investigation. So that's what that relates to.
yeah. And then on voucher 125, it's for the Tompkins County Health. It's for the water district owner and operator. We should correct those names on there because they're the two people on there are no longer with us.
Could you tell me again what number that is? I'll make a note to have that
Number
fixed.
125.
125, thank you.
Yeah. And I was curious about this one. It's Tompkins County Finance Department number voucher 124. So we're paying like $50 or something for a franchise fee.
Yeah, I can comment on that. So we have a contract with, it's still listed as American TV, but it's also known as Time Warner, Spectrum, Charter, that whole thing. We have a franchise contract with them that says if they are paying us a franchise fee every year, then they do not need to pay us taxes. So they pay taxes directly to the county, but they do not pay the town portion of the taxes. So we need to reimburse the county for that. And basically we take it out of the franchise fee that they pay us every year.
Yeah, I couldn't follow it. I was like,
Yeah, it's, yeah.
I was looking it over and I was like, what? I couldn't make sense of it. So thank you.
Mhm.
Man, I'm glad Chris is here because I couldn't have said that
Yeah.
very easily. Thank you, Chris.
Those are the only questions I had. Thank you.
In that case, I would move that the resolve of the Ulysses Town Board has reviewed and approves payments of claims for vouchers number 82 through 126 in the amount of $115,393.57. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. Thank you very much. And that brings us back full circle to privilege of the floor. Is there anybody in the public who wishes to address us? Yes, Linda,
Hi.
next up.
Okay, great news about Matt for the planning board. It's always such a fire drill when we are afraid that we have a quorum or not. So the other question I had, since we have additional staff, is there any way for the water committee that we could get some administrative support to help with minutes and that type of stuff?
So minutes, yes, we should be able to help you with minutes. Are you recording your meetings by any chance?
You know, we haven't been, no, we could be, but we're not necessarily going to be online all the time, so we can. But I can look into that. I will
Okay.
look into that. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Well, the only reason is because I saw from your schedule that you're doing it twice a month and it's trying to just always coordinate being able to have
Right.
somebody who can be available at those hours. So if it's possible,
Right.
sometimes if someone could watch the recording, listen to the recording and take minutes from there.
Sure.
Because for, you
Yeah.
know, we can't do that for a planning board or BZA. But absolutely. And,
Okay,
and
great.
I've also directed Niels to provide some administrative staff support as well from at least his professional wing. So we can definitely get you some assistance with minutes and stuff. Yeah.
Okay, that'd be great. Okay. The other thing is, I thought Rich's question about the rec field and what goes on once you buy the land was great. And I think it's important, once you start negotiating and word goes out that the town's considering buying land, that it would be good to have a more concise story or a more specific story about how that would actually play out. Because it's a very easy, I mean, I've experienced this in other towns, you know, where we've lived in the same issue. It's so easy for a story that's not real to get going and to cause a lot of concern in the community. So if there's any way you can just pull together a better picture of how it would play out if the town bought the, did buy the land, and then how it would be maintained, how it would be structured, what actually would be there, that kind of stuff, as specific as you can get, is really helpful. Because imaginations are great. They come up with some wonderful things.
Absolutely. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you,
So,
Linda.
and I would like to know too, so more specifically.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I think part of the specifics is that's part of the reason TCR is doing a survey right now.
Yeah.
The actual, I think we can say that we'd like it to be a multi-sports facility, multi-use facility, property. But does that look like 2 soccer fields and 3 baseball diamonds, or does it look like something else? Right.
Right. I get it. Yeah. Right. Yeah. But where's parking going to be? All that kind of stuff. And what's our tax dollars going to be paying for?
Right. Well, and that's frankly
Yeah.
why I wouldn't be supporting of this at all if TCR didn't exist, because quite honestly, tackling the entire development at $1 million by ourselves.
Oh,
is a lot
yeah.
of time that we just don't have the capacity to scale up to. So that's really why
Right.
it would be a public-private partnership.
And people will come up with that $1 million and
Oh,
say,
absolutely.
that's what,
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
why, but I can't go out and put my hand out without, actually going into your pocket.
Sure. Yeah.
Taxes, and you don't want me to raise your taxes. So I
Right.
know, I totally get it. Thank you, Linda. I appreciate that.
Also, will at any stage, would it become a referendum of some sort? Would the community need to vote on it? Specifically?
Because it's a pure land purchase. It does not trigger permissive referendum. If we were planning to put a building there and do a bunch of other stuff, then absolutely it would. But really, because we don't have any firm plans to build anything on it, then
Okay, that's
it doesn't
interesting.
trigger permissive referendum.
Yeah.
So,
Okay,
great question.
that's all.
Yep.
Thanks.
Sorry, Roxanne. Linda was fast. She was super speedy. You're up.
No worries. No, just following up on that wasn't the main thing. I wanted to say what Linda just said, though. I wanted to thank the board for just thinking about ways to use the ARPA funds. I was a strong proponent of trying to think of ways to use them for the whole community and, weigh out the best possible things, and brought up that land purchase back, when we were discussing the budget, and as a thought after Trumansburg Rec came, and Rich, has followed up on it. And so I'm, maybe that won't be the thing that works out, but I'm really glad that the board is looking into things that could serve the whole community with that pulse of funds that we got. But what I did want to just make a comment on was the comp plan. It's great news that the grant we're finally getting the information to do the contract. I don't see that it means that we can't do anything until we get the contract in place, because we're counting volunteer hours. When we wrote that grant, Michelle and I, we used a start time when we would, look at volunteer hours, and we were certainly anticipating, and the board actually passed an outline for how we would do the whole project, review and update project in September of 2022, saying that we were going to be doing several things with volunteers before we ever got that grant, because we didn't even know if we would get that grant. So I think it would be nice if we could just, engage the folks, of which I'm one, that have offered their time to work on this project, which is a substantial time commitment. It's a very important thing. And, to start engaging us in the discussion. I see that Neil's report is that he's been working with the chair. The rest of us who've been appointed, people have asked me what's going on. Our committee asks me, because I'm representing them, and others have asked me, what's going on, and I don't know. And so maybe, all of us could be engaged in the conversation. We haven't even gotten a message saying, oh, Ann is our chair. And, so it just would be nice to have it be a little bit more, camaraderie and inclusive, as opposed to laid down from the top, since all of us have to, work together and in a community way for, you know, probably a year and a half to 2 years on this. So I don't think waiting till the grant details are in place should preclude volunteers from getting together to talk about how we can be working together and meet each other and add the new people as they come, but not wait. So I hope the board will consider that. So thanks.
Thank you, Roxanne. I appreciate it. I would see if there was anybody else in the public, but I don't see anybody else in the public. So if it's that time and Rich is here,
Hey, move to adjourn.
Second.
okay, have a good evening, everybody. Stay safe out there. It's windy, but I don't think it's snowing. Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
Yeah.
Right.
Good night.